Well, good evening. It is a holiday, Labor Day, if you are one of our viewers or drivers from the United States. And being on a holiday, this is going to be a race outside of the regular schedule. This is technically a bye week, but there is a practice race for the Nords 1 hour that we will be having this time next week. So tonight we will have a 30-minute no-stop race in preparation for the 1 hour one-stop race and give some drivers some familiarity with the track. It is open selection of cars, so you will see some variation of car choice between a few of the different drivers. But on to more pressing matters. I have just gotten back from the Lone Star Le Mans 6 hours of COTA at the at COTA, obviously. But that was I'd say life-changing event. It was a very fun event. I had a lot of fun there. My first time ever going to a WEC event, and a lot of very cool, very unique experiences. I actually got to see these Ford Mustang GT3 cars for the first time in person. Same thing with the screaming Cadillac. And these things, they sound pretty close to what they sound like in real life here in ACC. Most everything does, actually. The hypercars were very cool to see. The Cadillac that I was very excited to see was well worth going there. It was well worth the trip and the ticket price. As Ormiston gets a little squirrely on the chicane. Nate actually top of the timing boards in the McLaren 720S GT3. Speaking of McLaren 720S GT3, I got to go into the United Autosport McLaren garage on Friday night after free practice too. Also, I got to go into the Jota Sport Porsche 963 garage and go take a look at their cars that they had in there. We weren't allowed to take any pictures because they've got some secret stuff that Jota does outside of the Porsche Penske or just the Porsche factory team. So they buy the car, but they make some of their own parts. They don't buy all of their parts like a Proton does, or like GT3. All of the GT3 end up factory supplying their parts. What is up, Wilson? Wilson just popping into the chat now was also there with me this past weekend. We got to watch a couple corners, a few hours of on-track action, and just some good hanging out during that time as well. But my legs hurt a lot. I would get to the track as soon as it opened. I would actually be waiting in line before the track ever opened, and then would leave, except for Saturday. I left just after qualifying on Saturday to get myself re-upped and ready for the race day on Sunday. But still, I spent, I would say, an average of about 12 hours at the track each day. On Friday, when we did the private tour with Martin Haven and Graham Goodwin, two of the WEC commentators, we did not leave the track, or I did not leave the track until about 9:30 that night, and walked past Robert Kubica on my way out. but he was talking to a few of the AF Corsa Ferrari people, so I did not bother him. Ran into Nick DeVries. You may see in a few of the Discord servers that I'm in, I have posted a picture of myself and Nick DeVries. Talked to Nicholas Costa, the driver for the United Auto, one of the drivers for the United Autosport McLaren. I ran into Ben Keating out there. Didn't get a picture with him, but I did run into Ben Keating. And got to talk to just a few of the different drivers. Mike Conway. I have a Toyota GR flag signed by Nick DeVries, Kimoi Kobayashi, and Mike Conway, which is probably one of the coolest things that I have bringing back from that weekend. I also have very many little cards and things signed by a few of the different drivers, but Cadillac was giving out shirts and posters, and I took one of their posters, went to the Cadillac table during our autograph session, and had Earl Bamber and Alex Lynn sign my Cadillac poster, so that fulfilled a little bit of my Cadillac fanboying. Only one Cadillac there. The number 2 blue Cadillac. No number 3. I believe the number 3 is the yellow Ganassi. It may be the number 1, and the number 3 may be the Action Express Cadillac, but I'm not 100% sure. But the most surprising thing of the entire weekend was the sound of the Alpine hypercar. Both of the French hypercars were very interesting. The Alpine and the Peugeot as well, they both had very loud, very strong sounding turbos. But the Alpine, I mean, I could try to relate to some of my airplane people if any of you are there, but the I believe it's the trying to remember if it's the P47 or the P51. I think it may be both, but they've got a duct under the belly of those two planes that causes a whistle as they fly through the air. You'll hear it's a very distinct whistle that's very similar to the noise that the Alpine hypercars were making. They were very cool sounding. I didn't get to really take home any of the Alpine stuff because during the pit walk autograph sessions, with the presence of Mick Schumacher, the Alpine tables were very occupied with a very, very, very long line. Surprisingly enough, there were not that many people at the Lamborghini SC63 Iron Lynx hypercar table. And I mean, that was Denny Kvyat. I mean, maybe not the most popular Formula 1 driver in the world, but still a Formula 1 driver. Quite a few current and former, I say not current, but recent and much older Formula 1 drivers at the Lone Star Le Mans this past weekend. And a little tidbit that I found out that I did not know, Andy Soucek, any of you older GT racing drivers, or if you've been in interest of sports car racing for quite some time, Andy Soucek, when I came to know him, was driving the number 108 M Sport Bentley Continental GT3, and I believe he won the Bathurst 12 Hour in 2019 when they had a very special livery on that Bentley. But Andy Soucek, after the dissolution of the Bentley GT3 program, the entire dissolution of the Bentley racing program, Andy Soucek got a job working at Circuit of the Americas, and he does a lot of things with Circuit of the Americas. I would absolutely love to run into him in the future. And my commentary mentor, Ryan Myrain, that I met at the GT World Challenge at COTA back in May, was also there. He was doing the PA and some of the comms for the Mustang Challenge, Super Trofeo, and the WEC event. And I believe it was Graham Goodwin and Ryan Myrain in the booth for the track commentary. They may have been on the official broadcast. I have not watched the official broadcast, but it was still very cool to see them. Free practice has come to an end. Peach is at the top of the timing boards currently, but it is going to be a long time until this practice session is over because we do have a few drivers on track to still complete a lap. The number one of Aramich being one of those drivers still out there. You may notice not the full grid tonight. There are more drivers making their way in, but not the full grid as of right now. It is a holiday and technically a bye week in the calendar, but there is some extra opportunity for practice ahead of the 1 hour next week. There will not be any pit stop practice, at least none scheduled. There may be some unscheduled pit stops with some rapid unscheduled disassembly or some pit lane entry for qualifying, but likely going to be if you end up needing to head back to the pit lane during qualifying, you will do so by returning to garage because you cannot really waste that much time. It will take you right around 11 minutes to set a flying lap around here. You have to leave the pit lane, come around the GP circuit, make the right-hander like you would to complete a GT or the GP lap, and then cross the start-finish line once again to officially start your lap, and then sometime a little bit around the 8:20, 8:30 second mark is the lap time that you are going to be looking for, so it puts you right around 11 minutes per flying lap during qualifying. And if your lap goes bad, you cannot afford to make it to drive it around the rest of the track if you take any sort of damage or anything like that. Now, if you just invalidate the lap and have enough fuel in it to make your way through the rest of the track, it may be faster to go on ahead and get to the start-finish line with a flying start. But you're going to have much more worn tires and may be at risk of running out of fuel depending on how much you have put into the car. On board with Peach, who is actually now the last driver on track to complete a lap, as Aramich has abandoned their lap. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in. Especially those of you who tune in early. And thank you for that follow, Schwartz. And Schwartz, is it your first race with GFR tonight? It may be. Man, I will tell you, when you go to an event that has that many cars And that type of car, it is loud. And you may think the Cadillacs are loud, maybe the Corvette Z06 GT3R is loud, which it was. You may think that the Mustangs are loud, which they are. Nothing is louder than the Huracans. The Super Trofeo cars and the Huracan GT3s were the loudest cars on track, and the Super Trofeo races or practice or qualifying, everything that the Super Trofeo cars were doing was exceptionally loud. Very, very, very loud. And Peach goes ahead and abandons the lap, I think trying to end the session. And once Peach goes there, the session will end. You can see the BMW safety car there. But here in qualifying, 20 minutes of qualifying, and who is out first? Looks to be the BMW of Brad, first taker, out on track to get a lap set here. Brad in the BMW with Trixit in tow just behind. Ormiston slower getting out. And with the Nordschleife being a very, I will say very varied track in terms of driver comfort and skill, there are very many ways that your qualifying can go. It may be smarter to hang back during qualifying and allow the rest of the field to make their way through, or to at least make a large gap. If they're going to make any mistakes, let them make their mistakes, and then you file on through if they're either off the track or already returned back to the garage. Qualifying here, very interesting, especially with the Joker lap, as Brad will head up through the Advan kink into the chicane, and will make the hard right-hander just past the GP pit lane entry to complete the Joker lap, opting to not stay to the right-hand side of the cones, and crossing the start-finish line to start the first flying lap of this qualifying session. Hard braking down into turn number 1 of the Mercedes arena, and cutting through the arena before we head down to the S's or the curves. I get a lot of different answers on what these curves are called. I've heard one of them called Ford curve, one of them called Castrol curve. But either way, we head down the hill towards the Dunlop curve, or what, as I like to call it, the Dunlop hairpin. Hanging wide for the entry and then tucking it on the apex all the way around before you hang it wide out to the left-hand side. Trying to get that car set up for the very, very tricky Schumacher-esque steep curbs on both sides that can be used, but also very easy to disrupt the car. And as we come into the Ravenel curve, floating out to the outside, and then outside, then apex outside again. Same thing for the Bielstein curve. A little bit of green runoff that you can use, painted tarmac, but there is that sand trap on the outside. Very hard to get that perfect, but a lot of speed to be made up the Advan kink, heading up the hill as we come into the chicane for the first time for this flying lap. Take the left-hander onto the Nordschleife, and now we enter the green hill. The first turn, Sabine Schmidt's curve or Nord curve, depending on how you like your eggs. And then we come down for the run towards Hatzenbach. We'll have the flat curb on the inside with that wall immediately on the outside. Just a few weeks ago, there was that giant crash that all of the GT3 field was involved in here at the Nordschleife in that heavy rain. Jimmy Broadbent actually was in that race. Not involved in the incident, but was there. Now on to the Quiddelbacher Hoa, heading up towards Flugplatz. Flugplatz, and uphill, off-cambered, very high-speed turn, very easy to go too wide. If you touch that curb on the inside, you will unsettle the car and force it wide. Very easy to enter the turn too late and go wide, but Brad makes it through just fine. Now full throttle as we come into Schwedenkreuz. It's full throttle through here if you are brave. Then hard, hard, hard on the brakes. Keep that steering wheel straight for the right-hander of Arenberg. Now we enter the foxhole down the hill, heading towards the compression, and this is going to be one of the top speeds that you reach on the track. Downhill, flat out, there is nothing to really slow you down until you get to the compression, heading back up the hill, now into Adnar Forst. Very tricky section here. That curb on the inside can be used, but then you come to the late apex entry of Adnar Forst, the chicane, where you will see a lot of auto addiction videos made. Now, once again, back on the throttle, heading up through the gears as we head towards Metzigesfeld. Very tricky right-hander, long right-hander, which will eventually bring us into the hairpin of Kallenhard. And as we come into Kallenhard, now we head towards the miss, hit, miss section. Missed the apex, missed the first apex, hit the second apex, missed the third one. Now into the oddly shaped hairpin slash kink of Breitscheid. As we come out of Breitscheid, not 100% sure what this corner is called, but I have seen it referred to as Exmühle. Exmühle may just be German for something that I don't know. But now we head towards the acute right-hander of Bergwerk, which will get us set up for what I like to call the back straight here at the Nordschleife through the trees, as we are now thoroughly into the forest here at the Green Hill. You do have to look out for the kink on the inside of Kesselchen. You do want to get very close to that kink, but you do not want to touch that apex, as that will completely throw the car off, and very hard to fit two cars side by side through that section all the way down here. Now we come into Bravery corner. Mutt Curve, very tricky to get that corner right, as you can run it very wide to the outside. But if you touch that wall, you do invalidate the lap. Now into Klostertal, the party corner, before we get to the carousel. And now the most iconic corner of the Nordschleife, the carousel. Banked like a short track, stock car track on the inside. And now we begin the run up towards Hohe Acht. Through the trees once again, and a lot of curbs here that you do not want to use. Very tall, sharp curbs that will upset the car if you touch them. Except for these two curbs here at Wipperman, you will see they are flat on the inside. You can use and abuse them, as Brad goes over them now. And then into Eschbach as we come around out of Eschbach and eventually into Brünchen, the double right-hander, aka YouTube corner, the second right-hander here, the second spot that you will see a lot of those auto addiction videos made from. And now we run towards the jump of Flonsgarten. Brad still on a good lap here. Flonsgarten, it can all come apart as you see the rear of that BMW slam down to the ground. Now we are flat out all the way towards Schwalbenschwanz. In through the S's. It is flat out, but you have to absolutely be on the limit to do so. Makes it through there nice, and it looks to be a good lap for Brad. Good lap to set the pace here in qualifying. As we come out of Schwalbenschwanz and into the Kleine Carousel, just a couple more obstacles for Brad to deal with. Very easy to lose the car coming out of the Kleine Carousel, getting spit out of that banking a little bit too early. Now we head on to the Dottinger Höhe. This is going to be the highest speed section of the track, flat out for a long, long ways. As we'll go on board, you can see that it is just nothing but straightaway for quite some time. If you've got a snack or a drink, this is the time to go ahead and get that consumed, because you are going to be on this straight for a while and you won't need to shift once you get past 6th gear. Now into Tiergarten. Very tricky section. You do want to be flat out for the best possible speed, the best possible lap. Now out of Tiergarten, out of Hocheichen, and back onto the GP Strecke. What is it going to be for Brad? What is the time to beat? It is an 8:20.5, better than anything that we saw in the practice session earlier. Trixit goes with an 8:21.207, and Aramich eclipses both of them with an 8:17.7. Thank you, Zalexi, for the raid. Aramich top of the timing boards now, and still quite a good bit of the rest of the field needing to set a flying lap. Halfway through this 20-minute qualifying session, though, Platypus eclipses Brad and goes second in that Aston Martin. Peach third in the Ford Mustang. Very interesting car here at the Nordschleife, but is very strong. If you remember back to the XCL 24-hour, the Schwitzer Motorsport Mustang GT3 was a very, very strong car, only being beaten by the XCL exclusive esports Ferrari 296. So we have seen this Mustang have very, very good pace here, just needs to be in the right hands. Peach very quick with the Mustang. Ormiston, the one to watch, but is in a little bit of a rough state. Won the first 3 races of this season and has just had trouble coming back ever since. Has just not been on the podium. I believe it was Platypus that won the previous, it was Platypus that won at Silverstone, and then it was, who was it that won at Alton Park last week? I will have to go look and see, because I don't remember who won last week. It has been a very long weekend. It was Aramich that brought home the win last week at Alton Park. And it was Mataj that won the AM. We still have an AM split in this race, but I don't think we're really going to be paying too much attention to the Pro-Am split tonight, as this race is not 4 points, it's just for practice for the 1 hour race next week. Schwartz in the Ferrari 296 at number 99. I believe this is going to be their first race here with GoFAST Racing. Also, Schwartz, thank you for the follow. Ormiston still needing to set a flying lap. Qualifying, very important here at the Nordschleife, because if you get caught behind somebody that may not be in the best pace position, or may not have the best pace, It is very tricky to get past, very narrow here, not much runoff, and a lot of walls to bounce off of. And especially the further back in the pack you are, the increased chances you have of being involved in an incident. And Ormiston, while still not having won either of the previous 2 races, winning the first 3, still has put Ormiston in a really good spot in the championship, leading the championship with Platypus in P2 just behind. Ormiston does have the Mustang of Peach just behind. I think Ormiston is going to allow Peach to go by. This could be some crucial data gathering for Ormiston. Needs another win just to buy some more insurance on this championship. Ormiston's getting a little squirrely. Does eventually get it wrangled back down. But back to the pit lane, and is Ormiston going to go for another qualifying lap here? Energy coming down the Dottinger, looking to set their first flying lap. And no good for Energy. Still an invalid lap. Looking to improve, though. And will have one more opportunity to do so. Psycaster not sporting the Manti livery on that Porsche. Gone with some custom colors on there. Looking to set a lap time in that Porsche 992 GT3R. Cabe will not set a lap time. Brute looking to set a lap time. Nate in the McLaren. We did see Nate set up a very respectable time in practice, but just unable to get a time out there for the qualifying session, but will have an opportunity to get one set when Nate comes across the line here, as long as this lap is valid. Brad back up into pole position, but immediately taken away by Trixit. Trixit up onto the pole position, provisional pole, and taking that H&R sign with him. But just 0.2 of a second between, or actually 1.3, just a tenth and a half between the top 3 here in GT3. And if that doesn't tell you anything about GoFAST racing, well, I say that as Peach goes with a 8:16. But if that doesn't tell you anything about the skill level here in GoFAST Racing, it is unmatched. The amount of skill that you have here in this league, just the amount of pace that the field will be able to run with. As here at the Nordschleife, it is a little bit different story, but multiple times throughout this season, the majority of the field is running within a second of each other, within a second in terms of pace. We have the number 25 of Christian B in that Mustang, looking to set a lap here. What will it be? Enough for P11. Your mom in the McLaren, a regular contender here in GoFAST Racing, looking to set a lap in that McLaren. Nate did end up bringing a lap, bringing P7 for now. But your mom, a top contender that we usually see near the front of the field, does have some time that needs to be made up. As a qualifying lap that you set here is kind of like throwing a dartboard blindfolded. Any lap can just kind of put you anywhere on that board, as we have lap times that are all over the place as of right now. And that's just the nature of the Nordschleife. You may be able to run better race pace when you have those cars in front of you to reference yourself off of. Sometimes when it comes to qualifying, your mom P11, knocking Christian B down to P12. The number 34 of Dingham, looking to improve. Still in that McLaren, and will Dingham improve? Currently P9. Up to P7, knocking down the sister McLaren of Nate down a position. The number 969 of Mataj, with what may be, actually is not the Porsche of Brute behind. I heard another car, but unsure of exactly who that is. Well, I thought someone was right beside Mataj on track, but I guess not. But down the Dottinger, Mataj looking to improve. 9.9 seconds off of the pole lap of Peach in that Ford Mustang. And hard on the brakes into Hawk Eichen. Back on that throttle, trying to set a lap here. Or set a faster lap. What is it? It's 3 seconds off the pace, but not enough to improve from a 9.9 seconds. It's actually 4 seconds faster. I thought it was 3 seconds, but it's actually 4 seconds faster from a 9.9 second delta to a 6 second delta. So a massive improvement for Mataj on that lap, but not enough to move up in position. Platypus looking to move up in position, though, needs 2 seconds to guarantee one position. Actually needs about 2.1 seconds to guarantee a position. And I'm guessing Platypus has got that time in his pocket, as he is still pushing on this lap. We'll see if Platypus can improve. That is not going to help that bobble out of the Kleine Carousel. Likely still has some time on the table. Platypus, we know, has the pace. A race winner in this season, winning the night race at Silverstone. Now flat out down the Dottinger Höhe. Will Platypus be able to improve A slight improvement is going to be a big improvement in terms of position. If Platypus is able to take 2 seconds off of this pace, even 2.2 or 2.3, that would be a bump up from P5 to either P3 or P2. Could very well put Platypus on the front row here if he has enough time in his pocket coming out of Hawkeye and onto the GP Strecka. What will it be for Platypus? Confidence on this lap, and it looks to be a good one. Is it enough? It is not an improvement. Platypus going for the lap anyway. The number 28 of Energy will be the last out to set a lap, and Energy looking to set his first and only flying lap. Is on a valid lap. We'll just have to wait and see what Energy can bring to the table. Flat out in this Ford Mustang, and the sound of these Mustangs is burned into my ears after listening to them at the Lone Star Le Mans. Onto the GP Strecka, a little bit of a wiggle from the rear, trying to get on that throttle as early as possible. What is it going to be for Energy? Up to P7, knocking down all of the McLarens, but the two McLarens that were side by side, Dingham and Nate, knocking them both down a position. Energy slots in just behind the Porsche of Mataj. All right. Peach in P1, Trixit in P2, Brad P3, Aramich P4, Platypus P5, Mataj P6, Energy P7, Dingham P8, Nate P9, Giant P10, Schwartz P11 in their first race here with GoFAST Racing, I believe. Your Mom P12, Christian B P13, Ormiston P14, Mad Psycaster P15, Cabe P16, Brute P17, Manelli P18, Langley P19, and Michael D P20. 1 to watch is going to be the Mustang of Ormiston. Has the pace, is well into the middle of the field, did not set a flying lap in qualifying. And usually one of the front runners, at least in the top 5, will likely see Ormiston have a run towards the front of the field. Peach, the Mustang, at the front this time with the teammates of Trixit and Aramich to contend with at the race start. Is Brad going to give Peach the push and try and get past the sister Ferraris that are just beside? Or are Trixit and Aramich going to find a way through and have a 1-2 lead at the beginning of this race? There's only one way to find out, and that's to get this thing started as we are coming up to the GP Strecka. A little bit of weaving, trying to generate some tire temperature as we get ready to get started with this 30-minute race. No stops. It is just here to the end. At least no scheduled stops. But Peach will lead the field to the line and take the green flag here for this Nordschleife warm-up race. And we've already got 2 drive-through penalties for starting infringements. Mataj and the Porsche going very, very early, looking for a move on the Ferraris up ahead, but it is going to be the Ferraris slotting through, it seems. Peach is caught out, and the teammates are up to the front of the field. Trixit leads Aramich, P1 and P2 for the teammate Ferraris. And Energy in that Mustang, as they are very tight behind the McLarens of Dingham and your mom having some very, very close negotiations there through the curves. But Trixit and Aramich up into the lead as the field comes through the Schumacher S. The number 99 Ferrari 296 of Schwartz did have to start from the pit lane. But Peach, now with work to do, was able to do the work in qualifying, but now has to do the work in the race here to get this lead back. Peach trying to chase down the Ferraris of Trixit and Aramich, and you can tell that Peach is pushing. Let's go on board with Peach here as we enter the Nordschleife, chasing down the two Ferraris up ahead. And there is not quite any other simulator that really captures the full ambiance of the Nordschleife, especially in its 24-hour configuration. Quite like Zeta Corsa Competizione, you have all of the bright green flora and the fans in all of their camping gear and tents and things like that all along the sides. But Peach showed us that he is 1 second faster in qualifying and well into the slipstream of those Ferraris. This Mustang is going to have that handling, or not handling, but it's going to have that speed advantage. Handling will be slightly impaired being in the dirty air in this slipstream. But Peach in this Mustang, with the long straights that are available here at the Nordschleife, lift into Schwedenkreuz for safety and then hard on the brakes into Arenberg. Those straightaways are going to be the keys to Peach finding a way past those Ferraris and taking this lead back. Energy with that drive-through penalty. Christian B also getting a drive-through penalty. Not a great day for a couple of the Mustangs out here. And Michael D to the back of the field. I think there is a little bit of damage on that Acura, almost losing it coming down into Foxhole, but does eventually wrangle that Acura down. Looks to be a little bit of damage on the front of the Ferrari of Cabe. And I believe Langley is chasing down the Mustang of Christian B. Back onto this battle for the lead. The leading trio, the entirety of the podium as they come through miss, hit, miss, have broken away from the Porsche of Matage behind, who does have the Aston Martin of Platypus for company. And the key here for Peach in holding on to any chance of this lead, with those teammates up ahead, they are going to be doing a lot of helping each other, helping with slipstream, maybe backing up, slowing down to pick the other one up in slipstream and pull each other ahead. Peach needs to stay within slipstream range of those Ferraris. If Peach does not, they will be just left out of any sort of the fun as they come into Bergwerk. Corner exit is going to be very, very crucial for Peach in this Mustang. It does have a little bit of a disadvantage being front engine rear wheel. It is going to have a different weight distribution than those Ferraris up ahead, but Peach seems to have gotten all of that sorted and is looking to go for one of those two moves that needs to be made. But also crucial for Peach here not to battle too much in trying to get this position away, but Aramich is going to play second fiddle, will defend for Trixit as Trixit leads this race. Peach will just have to, in my eyes, angrily just sit back and wait, try to find a way to get past. Cannot allow Aramich to fall outside of slipstream range of Trixit, because then unless Aramich and Peach start to have a little bit of coordination, that Trixit would just be able to drive away. Granted that Trixit does not make any mistakes, but Taj just behind, caught out, having to make the long way around the carousel, and does hand the position to Platypus. Is going to be a short race, still is 30 minutes. But 30 minutes here at the Nordschleife, as I think Peach may have gotten a poor exit of Hoa Oct as they come through Vipperman. Now Peach has dropped back slightly and has some time to gain that, or to close that gap up before they get to the Dottinger, as that is going to be a crucial point for any sort of overtaking. Trixit and Aramich, if they are within slipstream range of each other and decide to bump each other down the straight, that would just push them further and further away from Peach in this Mustang. We'll see if these teammates are going to be fighting too much as they come into Flonskart, and a little bit of a jump as we see the Mustang of Peach just behind go front wheels off the ground. Looks like they may be having a little bit of a fight here, and that would be absolutely perfect for Peach to get a chance at getting this lead back. The sister Ferraris coming into Schwabenschwanz and the Kleine Carousel, but Aramich seems to be showing a little bit more pace over the sister Ferrari of Trixit, but Peach has now found a way back into this battle and will be within slipstream range when they come out of these double right-handers or triple apex right-hander and head back onto the long straight of the Dottinger Hoa. And is Peach going to be within slipstream range? I believe so. Is Peach going to be able to close the gap enough to find a way past? There is the opportunity here down the Dottinger, but there is another one on the GP Strecke. Langley, the McLaren, with some issues, and his teammates fighting. No second fiddle for Aramich as Aramich slots past Trixit and takes the lead here in this race. That does leave Trixit as fodder for Peach to have to deal with. And Aramich assumes the lead here in this race. Aramich will lead the first lap of this Nordschleife warm-up race. And Peach still well within a shout of this lead. And the longer this trio battles, you do start to open the door for Platypus just behind. If this trio gets very, very stubborn about battling and continues to battle for a long time. Brute into the pit lane, damage on that Porsche. Christian B into the pit lane, serving the drive-through. Langley into the pit lane in that BMW. Sorry, it was the McLaren of Nate, but the BMW of Langley into the pit lane with damage, and could possibly be the end of Langley's night, but no points on the line, no reason to not get that car back out there and go again. Car number 25, I believe, got a 30-second stop and go penalty for speeding in pit lane, trying to serve that drive-through penalty. Very, very unfortunate there. Very unfortunate for Christian B, as I believe that will move him back to the back of the grid. Aramich up at the front. Peach in that Mustang still holding on to this lead team, the teammate Ferrari 296s. But you can hear that low growl of that Aston Martin just behind. And number 24, the Porsche Brute, gets a 30-second stop-and-go penalty as well. But the longer that this leading trio battles, that low growl of that Aston Martin gets ever so much closer, just peeking into view at the end of that camera shot there. 3.5 seconds was the gap. And who has made a mistake? That is going to be the Ferrari of Trixit into the wall, and Peach is now let loose onto the Ferrari 296, the leading Ferrari of Aramich. Trixit made a mistake, and that has opened the door for Peach to try and hunt down those Ferraris. That superior the superior speed on those Mustangs, or from those Mustangs, is going to be very hard for those Ferraris to try and overpower, as on pure slipstream alone, I'm not sure that those Ferraris can catch a Mustang at full song. Energy still to serve their drive-through penalty, but after seeing the stop-and-go penalties that the other drivers have been served, may double think about braking a little earlier into that pit lane to not get that 30-second stop-and-go. The McLarens battling here, Dingham and Nate heading down into Foxhole. And McLaren versus McLaren. Can get very, very tight here into Adenar Force, but also easy to catch out another car if they make a mistake, but no mistakes there for the McLarens. Back onto the battle for the lead. And Aramich still leading, but does have the Mustang of Peach just closing in behind, is pulling along the Ferrari 296 of Trixit, and that is not going to help Platypus very much. Platypus, in order to get in on this battle for the lead, did need these front three to battle a little bit more, and if Peach does end up catching Aramich, that will cause these leaders to bunch up a little bit more and could eventually bring Platypus into the conversation. Platypus was 2.1 seconds behind. It is a long way for the Deltas here at the Nordschleife. Long way to the next timing line, but we are coming up to one just after the kink of Kesselchen. And Peach does seem to have grown a gap to the trailing 296 of Trixit behind. But when the timing updates, how will it update? I guess we don't get an update at that timing line. Peach still showing 2.5 seconds gap to the Ferrari up ahead, but it looks to be a little bit smaller than that. Nate and Dingham, the sister McLaren, still battling with the Mustang of Ormiston, trying to chase them down. The gap to Peach and Aramich actually grew slightly, 2.8 seconds now. Platypus got dropped off a little bit, also added some time to their delta. Was 2.5 seconds, now was 2.1 seconds, now 2.79, almost 2.8 seconds, almost 3/4 of a second added to the delta between Platypus and Trixit. Aramich has made a mistake. There's damage on the back of that Ferrari 296, and Peach is now well within range of getting this lead back. And I think Aramich may have just overcooked it into Hoa Oct or Vipperman, as that damage is very, very fresh, has just happened. And here at the Nordschleife, pace is only one part of the equation. You have to be able to keep the car clean, keep it out of the walls, keep it on the track, keep away from those penalties, as this is going to be the penultimate lap of this race, I believe. No, it will not. It will not be the penultimate lap. We will get 2 more laps. The next lap and then 1 more. But not very many laps in this race. We will get 5 laps, I believe. But now Aramich is in trouble, Aramich with damage. Peach does not have damage. Catching is one thing, passing is another. We've all heard the quote. I believe it was from the great Murray Walker. But on to the Dottinger. That Ferrari 296 with damage is going to have a lot of trouble holding back this Ford Mustang. This Voodoo V8 is very, very hard to keep behind you under slipstream. Peach pulls to the side and flies right on by as expected. Now Peach does have work on his plate still. Has made the pass, but the next two cars behind both have damage. It will be very crucial for Peach to bring this race home without any damage on that Mustang, but if he can do so, it should be a pretty easy cruise to the win here for Peach, as long as there are no mistakes. Nate now past the McLaren of Dingham, as I think Dingham has made a mistake. Ormiston also up the position. Energy coming into the pit lane to finally serve that drive-through penalty for that starting infringement. Aramich is not making it an easy fight, as Aramich is looking to respond very quickly to being overtaken by Peach. Aramich says it may not be pretty, but it's still fast. Damage not seeming to be too much of an issue for Aramich on that Ferrari. Energy makes it nice and clean out of the pit lane, clearing themselves of that penalty. And Ormiston with some damage on the front of that Mustang. Dingham also with damage. Side damage versus front damage for those two cars. So unsure of exactly where that damage came from. Manelli into the pit lane, and I think that may have been an unscheduled entry into the pit lane for Manelli. Platypus has closed the gap to the leaders up ahead, but those leaders are not helping him very much. Still within a shout of a podium, and it does seem that Trixit might be slowly falling off the pace. Doesn't have anywhere near as much damage showing as Aramich, and I think Trixit may have gathered up a little bit more pace here as he is actually closing in on the group up ahead. But Platypus needs the leaders up ahead to start battling, to bunch themselves up, slow themselves down, and allow Platypus to get into that fight. If Platypus does, we would have a four-way battle for the lead. Christian B comes in serving that 30-second stop-and-go penalty. Michael D into the pit lane as well. We have had a lot of entries into the pit lane, but this is where these Ferraris are going to struggle, is trying to catch this Mustang down these flat-out straight sections, as that Mustang is able to absolutely run away. May even be able to pull out of slipstream range of the car chasing behind, if that car behind does not have as much top speed as that Mustang. Mustang may be able to just overpower any slipstream help that the car behind may be receiving. Aramich still seems to be able to hold on to that 296 nicely. Trixit has closed up that gap by quite a bit, and they have all three grown the gap to the Aston Martin of Platypus behind. This is going to be the second to last lap. This is the penultimate lap. There will be one more lap after this, so any moves that are going to need to be made, they have got to be put on the board and get in order now, as there is not going to be much more time to make these moves. into miss, hit, miss. Aramich trying to chase down that Mustang of Peach, but at the last timing line, that Mustang has broken out of the slipstream range, and that is going to be the very last thing that Aramich needs. If Aramich is unable to hold on to at least a semblance of the slipstream of that Mustang, it is going to be game over for Aramich as they head towards Bergwerk. A few high-speed sections flat out, and these are going to be the crucial sections where if Aramich is not within slipstream range of that Mustang, but the teammate of Trixit behind is within range of Aramich, then Aramich is going to be in trouble and will likely be fighting a teammate rather than fighting for the win. And any infighting between those two would surely bring that Aston Martin that we just saw in the background there for a second well into this fight. Would not necessarily be a fight for the lead, but it would be a fight for the podium. But Peach is growing that gap, and that Mustang is getting further and further away. The Mustang, at least in this season, this GoFAST Racing Season 3, has shown to be a very, very formidable tool in any series. Some people dislike it, but it seems to be very, very quick, especially here at tracks that favor a lot of flat-out high speed. But to many people's surprise, Mustang is actually a fairly decent handling car, as we have seen it be very competitive at many, many tracks all through the season. May not set the fastest lap of the race, although Peach did set the fastest lap of the race here tonight, but may not set the fastest lap of the race at every track that we see it do well at, but is able to run at competitive pace and is starting to become a favorite for many drivers all across the world. This past weekend, I did see Ben Keating and Ryan Hardwick driving these Mustangs. They sound very, very good, but they did not do so well at COTA. Coming out of the Kleine Carousel, and as long as Peach does not make any mistakes as he comes to the start-finish line, Peach will lead as we get started with the last lap of the race. Giant has had an incident, and Mataj also has some damage on the front of that Porsche, but Giant into the pit lane, and that is very unfortunate for Giant. Driving that Porsche was running P6, but has now had to bring that car into the garage. Aramich growing the gap to the drivers behind to 1.5 seconds now. Trixit within slipstream range of Aramich behind. And as we head to the final lap of the race, Peach is leading by quite a large margin, just able to pull away from the Ferraris. But Platypus now within a shout of the podium, looking for another good finish here tonight. Platypus currently P2 in standings, behind Ormiston, who is currently running P9. This race is not for points tonight, but if this is how it is going to go next week, you just have to be feeling good in Platypus's position. Although there is some pace to be made, is right here at the front of the field. But a target for what your qualifying lap should be, as if conditions continues to stay the same and Ormiston qualifies lower than Platypus, it could be a very big opportunity for Platypus to close up the gap in that championship fight. Platypus still trying to catch the Ferraris up ahead. Peach has absolutely exited this show, and we may now have a three-way battle for the podium positions on the books here very shortly. The Mustang just running outside of earshot, 4.7 or 4.2 seconds ahead. Aramich, Trixit, and Platypus now behind. And a little bit of a mistake from Aramich too deep into Hatzenbach. And I think that has forced Aramich to check up a little bit, and that has now definitely closed this gap up. If that Aston Martin is within slipstream range of that Ferrari, Brute gets another 30-second stop-and-go penalty for speeding in pit lane. But if Platypus is within slipstream range of that Ferrari, which I believe he is, it will be very, very hard for the Ferrari of Trixit to defend this podium position away from Platypus. But that does not mean that you can count Trixit out of this fight. But Platypus is nearly pushing him through Arenberg. Will Platypus have the macho to go for this move into Foxhole and into the compression? You can have the look into Adnar Force, but it is very, very tricky, very, very risky. You can't really go too wide up the hill there. But now pressure, pressure, pressure. Platypus looking to find a way past Trixit here, and Trixit will try to hold on to this final spot on the podium. And all the while, Peach is just going to be pulling away in that Mustang. As long as Peach does not make any mistakes, it should be Peach's race to win here. Albeit not for points, it is a good measure of standing heading into the 1 hour next week. We have not introduced the pit stops and things, which we have seen quite a few drive-throughs and stop-and-go penalties. Pit stop's going to be a factor of consideration for practice as Platypus goes 3 tires off the track at the exit of Miss Hit Miss. Pushing, 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 trying to find a way past the Ferrari of Trixit. But seems to be having a little bit of trouble doing so. Going back to that catching is one thing, passing is another. Trixit now, at least at the last timing line, was outside of slipstream of the teammate of Aramich, but I think will be within slipstream as they come down the back straight towards Kesselchen. And if Trixit is within slipstream range of Aramich, that will help Trixit hold on to his position as they come to the left-hander of Mutt Curve. And it's just got to be absolutely perfect for Platypus from here to the end if Platypus wants a shout of getting onto the podium. That Mustang just running away outside of earshot, well into the carousel, actually exiting it now, as this trio, P2, P3 and P4 heading into the carousel. And did Platypus get a better exit than Trixit? I think Platypus did. And Trixit now far behind the teammate of Aramich. Platypus and Trixit will do battle here to the end of the race. Any move that is going to be made has to be done soon. Key factors here. Platypus needs to be in a position behind the Ferrari when they get to the Dottinger. Platypus could just ride behind Trixit all the way to the Kleine Carousel and then get set up for the slipstream overtake down the Dottinger. Trixit needs to pull away from Platypus, needs to find a way to shake this tail, because if Trixit is not able to get Platypus outside of slipstream range, then Trixit is going to be a sitting duck as they go down the Dottinger Straight. Very, very crucial. Flonsgarten, Schrabenschwanz, and the Kleine Carousel, they have to be absolutely perfect, but I don't know how much Trixit can do except for hope for a mistake from Platypus. They come through the S's. Platypus well into that slipstream range and is going to be in a prime position as the pressure has gotten to Trixit, but Platypus does not want to overtake Trixit before the Dottinger. That would allow that would allow Trixit to have the opportunity to take this position back. Now on to the Dottinger, and Trixit has been unable to shake Platypus from behind, and now Platypus will be within that slipstream range and just will try to pull along the side and pull past. On board with the Aston Martin of Platypus, and you can see that slipstream advantage, but is it going to be enough as they head into Tiergarten? It's going to be very, very close. And will Platypus be brave and go for this move? Platypus passing the grass, trying to repeat the move by Kevin Estra in that Manti Porsche, but unable to as of yet. Peach takes the win here in this Nordschleife warm-up race. Platypus unable to find a way past the Ferrari of Trixit. Aramich P2, Trixit P3, Platypus P4. Brad in the BMW will take home P5 in an overall clean-looking BMW. No damage to be seen there. Mataj with the McLaren of Nate just behind will bring home P6 and P7. Ormiston into the pit lane, did enter the pit lane at the midway through this last lap, and I think we'll lose some positions in doing so. So give me just a second and I will let you know. As Mataj comes across the line, Dingham comes across the line. Nate, I think, made a mistake. Comes across the line just beside Energy. Schwartz in the number 99 Ferrari comes across the line. Brute in the Porsche will just be making onto the Dottinger, but hard into the wall. That may be a tricky Porsche to drive home now. So some work that needs to be done for some of the drivers. As I guess we can go ahead and take a look at the timetables. Peach, not with the fastest lap of the race, but does have a few of the fastest sectors. 8:16.0. Oop, let me get back on with Brute. Aramich in 819. Oh, come on. Did it again. Let me see. The fastest lap actually is to Peach with an 8:16.0. Thanks to Trixit and his live timing software. Hard into the wall for Brute, though, coming into Hawk Eichen, and now that is going to be a very hard to drive Porsche. Mataj ran an 8:26.6 in the Porsche. Energy ran an 8:27.8, so the time to beat in AM was a 26.6. Michael D in the Honda for a strong finish in this race. Did have a pit stop, but it is all for practice. Michael D coming across the line brings home P7. And Christian B in the Mustang will be the last one to come across the line. And once again, everybody, please stick around. We are going to be rating a channel. So stick around. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. I will see you all on next week. And if you do follow the TRC streams, I will see you on Wednesday for those. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. And we will go ahead and raid MRC Misano. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good night. And we will go raid Misano.